Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to the channel. I've been receiving a lot of questions recently about my revision, so I thought I'd make this dedicated video to try and answer a few of the questions. A lot of you do ask questions in the comments, but simply going through every single comment for me is quite difficult, so making a video like this is far easier. And also, a lot of you message me on Instagram and ask me, Sen, I've got this question, I've got that question. And instead of me saying the same answer to 10 different people, if I make a video, I can address all of you in one single go. For those of you wondering, who's this schmuck and why is he talking about GCSE? I'm Sen, I'm a 4th year medical student and engineer here at Cambridge. And yeah, this channel's all about the work I get up to, the fun stuff I get up to. And for me, it's a platform just to share the interesting things that I'm up to, and hopefully to inspire people who share similar interests as me. But anyway, enough talking, let's get cracking. So the first question is, do you get very stressed about revision or working? I think this is a very good question. Simply put, of course, it is quite daunting sometimes realizing how much work you do have, but I feel as if I'm a person who sees some work that I need to do. Instead of worrying about the quantity of it, I just get to work and finish it. And I think this attitude of trying to finish things as soon as I see them is quite nice, because the satisfaction of finishing, let's say, a series of lecture notes is quite great. Though, that said, sometimes you do have 6 lectures to go through and you might only get through 4 because you're physically too tired to go through the last 2. But still, if you have lots of work, if you have revision to do, never think of it as a chore. Try and enjoy it and try and think what it will feel like to finish all of it and how accomplished you'll feel. And that buzz you get each time when you do that is kind of addictive. So yes, to answer the question, it is stressful for everybody, but you just have to approach it in a very enthusiastic manner and get through it. How much time do you spend revising on average per day? Great question. So revision is something which I consider as going over previous material. So I'd say revising per day, I'd do roughly 2-3 hours, and then another hour or 2 of going through new material, plus a few hours of lab work or experimental work that I'm doing. So in total I try and do sort of 8 to 9 hours of work per day, but revision specifically, which means again going over things, I spend roughly 2-3 hours per day. But of course, given my exams are 2 months away, that number is different now, or will increase even further soon. But yeah, that's my answer. How much free time per day do you get on average? So you've got to realise that my life here at university is very different to what it was like at school. But thinking back to my school days, I'd say I'd easily get 2-3 hours of free time. Now with free time back at school, I never really liked to have it in huge blocks. I instead enjoyed having smaller breaks, lots of smaller breaks. So I'd go home, for example, I'd take an hour off, I'd eat, I'd take a nap possibly, sit at my table at 5 o'clock, work until through, to 8 to 9, then maybe spend another hour or so watching a YouTube video or eating some food again or drinking some tea, speaking to my parents, relaxing with the family. Then I get back to work again at about 10 o'clock and work through until 1 o'clock in the morning. So, as I mentioned, I never really sort of would spend until 8 o'clock, from after school just relaxing and then working. I instead like to take breaks, which I think is much nicer because it refreshes you. But also you can split these chunks of work into different subjects. So for example, from 5 to 8, I might do biology purely, and after my hour or 2 break time, I can do chemistry. Do you find life easier now than when you started at Cambridge? That's a very good question. I must say, again, studying at university is in some ways different to when you study at school, but in some ways is very similar. Now I say it's similar because you simply do have to put the hours in like you're having to do at A-levels. You have to sit down, you have to go through the lecture notes, you have to do the question papers and have to understand the material. Would I say I find life easier? Of course, yes, being a 4th year, you understand what's important, you understand how much time to spend on an assignment. So for example, some assignments might be worth 30% each, but there's no point spending 80% of your time on one of the sections and then leaving 20% of the time for the other 2 sections, because the other 2 sections account for 60%. And so again, it's all about time management, and I think as you go through university, you do get better at that. That said, there are many things I'd love to even change about the way I'm working and studying and doing things now, and I feel as if that's just a matter of me becoming even more rigorous with what I do, and again, procrastinating less. Because trust me, even though you are at university and all, procrastination is still something that everyone still does. Funny thing, as I'm literally making this video about questions, I'm getting a message from someone who's saying, Sen, I've been asking so many questions, you're blanking me. Sorry, but that's why I'm making this video. As you go through university, life does get easier because you understand how to prioritize your time, but I'd say in terms of the hard work you have to put in, it's just the same as school. You have to sit down and study. What software is used for 3D modelling at Cambridge? So really good question actually. I'm using a lot of it right now for my 4th year project. When I was doing medicine, I didn't come across any of these software packages. As a medic, you are simply in the medicine bubble. So having switched to engineering, I've been able to use things like SolidWorks, which is the industry standard for 3D modeling. I did use Google SketchUp when I was at school doing design and technology, but SolidWorks is the next level up. And luckily a few friends of mine who are design engineers at the Institute of Manufacturing, again at Cambridge, it's in West Cambridge specifically, they are experts at SolidWorks. So the fantastic thing about Cambridge is whenever you don't understand something, even though you are using industry level software, you can always just ping someone a message and they'll be more than happy to help you. So when I started engineering, I did not realize I'd be able to use software like this. The next question is, what is the most difficult thing you do at university? I'd say it's realizing you have to stick by your own principles. That's the most difficult thing. When you come to university, of course, you meet a variety of fantastic people, some lesser fantastic people, but just a variety of people. Everyone convenes, and particularly at Cambridge, you're bringing together the brightest of minds. That said, not everyone has the same personality as you, not everyone has the same values as you, not everyone has the same principles as you. The most difficult thing that you've got to kind of do is sometimes realize that you have different principles and values to some people, and so if you don't get along, that's just a fact of life. And just realizing that sometimes if you don't get on with someone, or if something isn't working out, just move on and carry on. And it's hard to realize that because I guess it's really easy to get sucked into things, it's easy to get sucked into a friendship or relationship. But because at university there are so many people, literally you'll bump into new people the next day or the next week. So the most difficult thing is realizing that when things aren't working out in the best way for you, to just leave that situation and move on. Because university, especially at Cambridge, it moves so quickly that if you stay bogged down in a circle, you just end up in a spiral, and that's the last thing I want to get into. So the most difficult thing I do at university is realizing that when sometimes, I don't know, friends or acquaintances aren't the best people for me, and just leaving that and moving on. You come to university, you meet new people, but after 3 years you go back to your own life. And so it's really important that you, again, stick by your own principles to achieve what you came to achieve, not get sucked into, some otherworldly direction. Of course, for some people university does open their mind up and does, show them things that they wouldn't have otherwise have known about or have thought about. But for those who are determined and for those who come in with a goal in mind, that's the key thing to keep in mind. Just stay on your pathway and don't stray away. Now, answering that question from an academic perspective as to the most difficult thing I do, it's probably the fear of not knowing something in an exam, and I guess you get over it quite quickly, but it's still quite difficult because sometimes you're revising for an exam and you realize that you simply won't have time to go through some lectures or understand the principle. And so the most difficult thing I'd say is when you have to realize that you're going to sacrifice one topic to learn another topic to even better detail. So in the exam you end up acing, that other topic you learned well and gaining fewer marks, but overall getting greater marks. So it is quite difficult prioritizing what topics to leave and what to study. Those students who are super prepared will know everything. Then again, we're not all people who work 24/7, and we are still people. So the last question for this video: were you always top of your class at school? No. So when I was at school, I'd say we had different sets. So each year group was split up into 5 or 6 different forms. I'd say in year 7, I'd consider myself, in the early years when I was like 11, 12, 13, I'd consider myself to have been more middle of the bunch, maturing a bit, playing around a bit, goofing around. Wasn't too work focused, but still did my homework here and there. Parents sent me to tuition, which was quite useful thinking back, because I guess it sort of built a really good foundation. And then when year 10 kicked in and year 11 kicked in, I just realized I was just shifting up consistently in the class. Not in every subject, but in the sciences, math, even not religion and philosophy sometimes, I'd be doing quite well. So when I say I was doing quite well, I'd say I was probably getting, in the top 10 in the classes then. But when it came to about year 11, so about my GCSE times, I'd be getting the top 2 or 3 in my class. Within the whole year group, I'd be getting roughly in the top 15 people or something. At A-level again, similar situation, kept working hard. I know in the first year of A-levels I was a bit behind in terms of I wasn't in the top 2-3 each time, I was maybe in the top 5 or 6 each time. The grades I got for my A-levels, I'd say, out of 180 students or something, only 3 other boys got 4 A stars at my school. But 10-15 got 3 A stars, but only 2 or 3 got 4 A stars. So that shows that although right at the beginning, when I was super young, or even during the actual year, during each academic year, I wasn't at the top, the slow progressive work you put in just eventually edges you up. And then a few months before the exam, you're getting really good marks. And once you begin getting good marks, and once you begin getting top of the class, you get competitive, and you want to maintain that, so you work even harder to try and just oust everyone out and always keep up the scores. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I have kind of answered the questions that you've asked. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you guys soon in the next video. Bye-bye.